Hey, Dennis Hamilton here, also known as Would-Be Farmer. I'd like to go over Florida-Friendly Landscape. Florida-Friendly Landscape is a joint partnership between the University of Florida and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. There are 9 science-based principles that are intended to conserve water, conserve the Florida resources, and protect the Florida waters, the streams, the lakes, and the oceans. The 9 principles are, number 1, right place, right plant, or right plant, right place. Number 2 is water efficiently. 3 is fertilize appropriately. 4 is mulch. 5 is attract wildlife. 6 is manage yard pests responsibly. 7 is recycle yard waste. 8 is reduce stormwater runoff, and 9 is protect the waterfront. As you can see, 3 of the 9, 1/3 of the principles, are about water. So let's start with right plant in the right place. And certainly I can have a very productive fruit tree, for example, that requires 6 to 8 hours of sun per day. If I put it in a spot where it is only going to get an hour or 2 of sun, it is not going to be very productive. A great example of this, my experience, when I first started studying Florida landscaping, Florida gardening, Florida native species, and permaculture, I got online and I looked at agricultural zones. The USDA has labeled the various areas of the United States as having different agricultural zones. We here in this part of Florida are in USDA Agricultural Zone 9, meaning we can expect to get temperatures, low temperatures in the 20s. That is what USDA Zone 9 suggests. Okay, so I'm like, well, that's great. Having grown up in California, in the Zone 9 area, I thought, well, the plants there can work here. That's not the case. Not always. Why? Well, Zone 9 doesn't tell us how much rainfall is in your area. Zone 9 doesn't tell us how many sunny days there are. It doesn't tell us the humidity, for example, or how many growing hours you have, how many growing days in the season. It makes a big difference. So anyway, that's number 1, right plant, right place. Number 2 is to water efficiently. I think we have all been bothered by walking on a sidewalk and having someone's sprinkler system drench us on the way to work or school or wherever. Everybody understands that doesn't make sense, but we like things to be easy. We like things to be easy. We like things to be comfortable. We're busy. We wear a lot of hats. We don't have a lot of time, so we set up these systems to water our lawns, to water our plants, to water whatever it is. We don't always pay attention to what we're doing. I'm not too sure that watering lawns, to have these green, plush, beautiful lawns, are really doing ourselves any justice in the long run. We want to have a nice looking lawn. We fertilize it. We water it. We use way too much water and fertilizer. The water and fertilizer ends up running down into the streams and the rivers. It ends up going into the oceans, and on the way in the lagoons, causes algae blooms. We know what the algae blooms do. The algae just goes nuts with all the nutrients, and next thing you know, when it's time for the algae to die, they consume all the oxygen in this process. Now we don't have oxygen for fish, for shellfish. They die. We know what happens then. So it's not a good idea to overwater, not a good idea to over-fertilize, which is principle 3. So I've blended those 2 together. Fertilize appropriately. If you do it right, if you set up your systems correctly, if you set up your plants right, you won't have to fertilize much at all. And the best fertilizer, in my opinion, is using compost. Compost. we throw away a lot of things. We send a lot of things to the landfill that we don't need to send to the landfill. Kitchen scraps, for example, we can do compost. We can use leaves. If you do continue to have a high maintenance lawn and you cut the lawn, as long as you're not using pesticides and herbicides on the lawn, throw those lawn clippings into your compost area with your kitchen scraps. Use that as your fertilizer. Brings me to point 4, principle 4, mulch. When we look in a forested area, and I try to do this several times a week because we have a nice forested area on our property, I can view nature's mulch. Well, what's nature's mulch? The leaves that fall from the trees, twigs, dead branches. That becomes nature's mulch. It covers the forest floor. In addition to that, you have pee and poo from all the animals. You have animals that are dying. They decompose. That becomes mulch. That becomes mulch and fertilizer. If we mulch like the forest does, we have a nice thick layer of mulch surrounding our plants and trees. That's going to provide fertilizer. It's going to provide nutrients as it breaks down. It's also going to protect against rain when it falls. Rain is much less likely to hit the soil, cause erosion. It's going to buffer that. It's going to protect against the blazing sun. And in Florida, we know we have lots of sun. It's also going to prevent some evaporation. You're going to keep that area of the ground a lot cooler. Principle number 5, attract wildlife. Why do we want to attract wildlife? I don't want an alligator on my front porch. Yes, we do have challenges with wildlife. We have panthers, we have bears, we have alligators, we have snakes. The opposite of attracting wildlife would be to eliminate wildlife. If we eliminate wildlife, frogs, lizards, butterflies, songbirds, these are the ones we want to attract. Yes, we are also going to have the higher level predators. But if you want a successful landscape, if you want a successful garden, it has to be teeming with life. This is going to start in the soil with microorganisms and springtails and spiders. It's going to have lizards and frogs and all the way up to the higher level of life. So we need to attract wildlife. 6, manage yard pests responsibly. We are going to have some pests. We are going to have the occasional grasshopper, insect, bug that's going to bother our plants. But let me ask you a question. If nothing in your garden, if nothing in your yard wanted to eat what you were growing, would you want to eat it? Why would you want to eat it? If we spray, we put chemicals out there so nothing else wants to eat what's out there in the garden, in the yard. That doesn't feel very good. Nothing else wants to eat my garden. Should I want to eat from my garden? What happens if we get a pest that comes in and just takes over? Well, the first thing we need to ask is, why is that pest there? Chances are it's because humans have intruded into an area, have moved into an area, and that has affected the ecosystem balance. If you have a good ecosystem balance, you're going to have prey, predators, good insects. You're going to have all kinds of things in order that are going to take care of any imbalance issues. You're unlikely to have one species that overproduces if its predator is around. When humans move into an area, we often push out a lot of the predators. We push out birds, we push out some of the mammals, some of the reptiles. So that's what causes the explosions of certain species. Okay, so what's the suggestion for managing yard pests? Last resort, use a pesticide. That should be your absolute last resort. Try to find out what the species is, what damage it's doing. Only about 10% of insects are going to do any damage, do any bother to us. find out what their predator is. If those predators can be introduced and keep balance, fantastic. If you have to use a pesticide, now this is true with pesticides or herbicides or fungicides, be very careful. Make sure you understand what you're using. Make sure that it's just targeted in a certain area, but you have to find out what the repercussions are. It's like when a doctor prescribes medicine for us. We better find out what the side effects are. We better think about it. Better get educated about it. So manage your yard pests responsibly. Number 7, recycle yard waste. I think I mentioned this earlier. It is essential that we stop taking all of our waste to the landfills. That costs time, that costs money, energy, and resources. Why should we take all of the waste, for example, yard clippings, send them to the landfill? Kitchen scraps, send that to the landfill. Then, because I've taken all those nutrients from where I live, I've sent them elsewhere. Now I need to go to Lowe's or Home Depot or a nursery or somewhere, get nutrients back if I want healthy plants, if I want to grow plants. So those nutrients I'm getting from somewhere else, it's like this big, huge whirlwind. It's like it doesn't make any sense. That costs money because somebody else has to mine those or process those nutrients and minerals, package them, ship them somewhere to a store. I go there. If I already have minerals and nutrients here, I shouldn't send them to the landfill. I should keep them here, recycle my yard waste. Number 8, reduce stormwater runoff. Example of reducing stormwater runoff. We have an 800 square foot little country cottage here that we love. We have a metal roof. Water comes off that roof and bam, it hits an area. That water spreads out. It wants to seek the lowest level. It runs down my hills and my rills and it goes out into the pond. Well, if I strategically place some rain gardens, move some of the earth out, dig it, make like a big catcher's mitt, if you will, that rainwater can soak in there, especially if I plant species of plants and trees in that rain garden that likes the water. I can also put rain barrels under my downspouts, collect the rainwater, use that for irrigation. So I am trying to get as much of the use of the water from my property before it leaves. Reduce stormwater runoff. Bigger picture of reduction of stormwater runoff, don't pave everything. Now we're lucky, we live on a dirt road. And yes, I understand our system. We need to be able to move from South Carolina to Idaho. So yes, we need pavement. I get that. But the more we pave, the more paths and fast paths we create for stormwater runoff to hit our creeks, to hit our rivers and streams quickly, to go into our lakes, and to head down to the ocean. Also creates flooding problems. Think of a city like Houston. Gets the hurricanes and the storms. That's a lot of pavement. And so much of that water just runs straight down. When it runs straight down towards the ocean, into the creeks and rivers, and just runs it, it doesn't have a chance to settle in to the soil and recharge our aquifers. That's our well water. And nature will filter that if we live sustainably and appropriately. So we've got to reduce stormwater runoff. Number 9, the final principle, protect the waterfront. These principles, as you can see, they all work together. We want to limit pesticides, herbicides, and fungicide use because they don't always just target that one area. We want to limit those because they will flow into our rivers, creeks, and streams and pollute our oceans eventually. And pollute all of our water. They also get into our groundwater and our well water, and we have to treat it. So that's a problem. Protecting the waterfront, what does that mean technically for me? Okay. A waterfront can be a creek, a river, a lake. I've got a wetland back here, a pond. I am not going to go anywhere near there with any kind of fertilizers, pesticide. I don't think I've used, since I've been here, we've been here almost 4.5 years, I haven't used any pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides. I have done some target applications of can't even think of it, of iron, I think. Mineral applications, yes, but even that's targeted. But I won't do anything near that wetland. That wetland is protected. I'm not going to dig around it. I'm not going to do anything until I know exactly what I'm doing and if it's going to help to protect the ecosystem. So, 9 principles. Right plant, right place is number 1. Number 2 is water efficiently. Number 3 is fertilize appropriately. Number 4 is mulch. Number 5 is attract wildlife. 6 is to manage yard pests responsibly. 7 is to recycle yard waste. 8, reduce stormwater runoff. 9, protect the waterfront. And again, the Florida-friendly landscaping principles. Joint partnership between the University of Florida and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Hope I got that right. Anyway, thanks for listening. This is Would-Be Farmer, and I am out.